You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
All right, and welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. It is that time for the Friday night Fantasy Football Weekly Huddle, Week 18. We are here, the end of the season. I am Derek, and joined as always by your co-host, Kevin. How you doing?
Dude, TGIF, man. It was a long week at the JOB, and I'm glad to be spending my Friday night here because this helps brighten my day or night, if you will. But I'm glad to be here. I'm. It's bittersweet. This is the last Friday night show of the season, but nevertheless, we're gonna put a hell of a show together for everybody and do our damnedest to help guide you in making a little bit of money here off of some crazy games.
Yeah, it should be an interesting, right? Like, it's some of these things are so crazy that that Vegas themselves decided that they're not going to put some props out there yet. So it was very interesting kind of going through and looking at some of these games, trying to find some props, and you're like, nope, none to be had on this one. So it'll be interesting to see how this thing comes to play. Now, one of the other things too, right, is be aware of what the contracts look like and what bonuses are out there for players on certain milestones for season-long performances. It is that time, and you may see some guys heavily featured to make sure they get it, and then we don't see them much the rest of the game. So therein will lie the rub, so to speak. But should be kind of a fun slate. There's still some wild card spots left to be decided. There are still some divisions up for grabs. So should be a pretty good set of games here this weekend. Any thoughts kind of heading into them?
Here's my thought as you're going into this. Yes, the AFC South still up for grabs. The NFC East still up for grabs. And then there's an NFC wildcard spot that's up for grabs, right? And then AFC East is up for grabs as well, right? If Buffalo wins,
they get it.
So there's still some divisions there. So absolutely things to play for. Divisional, this is what the NFL wants with this last week, right? They want divisional on the line, and what this means for teams to get into the playoffs. I'm going to backtrack just a second, and I believe I sent you this reel, Derek, because I was watching something the other day, and the reel was about how to spice up your fantasy football league.
Yep, that was a good one.
And what the premise is everybody in the league is a 12-person league. Everybody in the league threw in an extra $10 off to the side. So you have $120. And what you do, or what these guys did with this $120, is they did a 5-leg parlay on the winners before their fantasy football draft. And the goal for this league was to be able to do a off-site destination draft that is fully funded. And I think they'd hit three of the legs, and they needed the last two to hit. And I hope it does it for them. Like, I think that's a cool idea.
Right.
So I hope it hits for them. I hope they're able to do that. I think it's a neat idea, right? If you can get 12 guys to agree on the five division winners, like that's honestly
a feat in itself.
Yeah, that deserves a party by itself. But let alone if they hit, dude, good on you. I'm rooting for those guys.
Right. Yeah, they certainly were still had that parlay very much live heading into it, and the teams that they needed to clinch were actually favored in the games and the matchups they're playing. So hopefully they hit and they get a real fun trip out of it. So that'd be nice for sure. So we should broach that idea for the home league. That could be interesting.
It'd be interesting.
So, all righty. Well, should we start breaking down some games here?
Yes, let's jump on into it as we kick off week 18.
Absolutely. So, and guys, if you have any questions, right, I know there's still a few folks out there that are rocking and rolling through their fantasy championships. For the folks that are playing a week 18 championship out there. So, if you have questions, comments, concerns, any of that stuff, throw them in the comments. Let's go ahead and throw it in the chat, and let's go ahead and talk about it. So, first up, we got the Steelers, Ravens squaring off. Steelers favored by 3. The over-under on this one, 34.5. Thoughts on this game?
I'm taking the Steelers because the Ravens are sitting just so many stinking people in this game. It doesn't really sound like the Steelers are sitting anybody. So Mason Rudolph's going to be your starting quarterback. Their passing attack's been a little bit better with him under center than what it has been for most of the season. So that'll be interesting. And if he's able to find success against a Baltimore secondary that might, a mix of starters and backups or whatever, if he's still able to find success, it, maybe he has a shot to kind of keep running that out a little bit, right? Like who knows? But very interesting. Congratulations, by the way, to Mike Tomlin for his 17th consecutive non-losing season. Like halfway through the season, there are people calling for his head, right? Fire Mike Tomlin. You want to fire Mike Tomlin? There are probably 29 other teams who would want Mike Tomlin in a heartbeat. Like you can't tell me if the Steelers were to fire Mike Tomlin, Belichick's retiring, that Robert Kraft isn't telling Mike Tomlin, I will pay you whatever you want.
Yeah.
Like come to New England and keep this rolling. Like we will build it the way that you want to build it. We will do it the way you want to do it. And it's a different culture than the Patriots culture for sure in a lot of different ways, but the results are similar-esque. So,
Right.
I mean, that would have been mind-blowing. But so congratulations, Mike Tomlin. Really he's one of the most underrated coaches ever, and especially in our era. He just constantly gets overlooked and underappreciated. And he is a hell of a football coach, and he is a leader of men. So congratulations to Mike Tomlin.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. The job that he's done out there in Pittsburgh is nothing short of astounding. So, and really speaks to kind of how well the organization's also run as a whole, right? From top to bottom. They certainly do a great job. And okay, so I'm kind of right there with you. I think that Pittsburgh's going to end up getting this one, right? Like they certainly have something to play for. Baltimore really doesn't. You got starters sitting all over the place, trying to preserve them for the playoffs. They've got the home field advantage throughout the AFC side of things and the first round bye. So, at this point, nothing to really play for along those fronts there. So you've also got it where Pittsburgh is still playing to try and get into the playoffs. They're on the bubble. And they can make it into a wild card spot. One, they have to win, and two, they're probably the biggest Tennessee Titans fans come Sunday morning. If they win, than anybody else, because that's the cleanest way that they can make it into the playoffs is a win and a Jacksonville loss. There's some other scenarios that could come to play there as well, but it's a whole lot of this, that, and the other have to happen to do that. So biggest thing is they win, Jacksonville loses, and they can get into the playoffs, or Buffalo loses. If Jacksonville wins, they could get in there too. So they very well might be the biggest Dolphins and Titans fans on the planet to come if they win that game on Saturday. So as far as a prop goes, though, I do like Mason Rudolph to go over his passing prop of 185.5 passing yards in a low scoring affair.
I'm taking Tyler Huntley over 157.5. He's familiar with the players in the organization, right? It's his first year in Todd Monken's offense as well. But you're gonna see Bateman. You're probably gonna see some OBJ. Isaiah Likely, I think, is gonna play at least for a little bit. Like he's going to have weapons out there to start. And it's still a pride thing, right? Huntley's trying to show off for a potential job down the line. He doesn't want to be Lamar Jackson's backup forever. So he's going to go out and try and put some things on tape as well. So I think 157.5 is way too low. So I think he eclipses the over relatively easily.
He's going to try and Matt Flynn it, you think?
I don't know if he's going for 340 yards and 4 touchdowns, but I do think that we can see him get to, 195 yards and, a touchdown through the air and possibly one on the ground.
Right. Whereas, I just wish Alex was here because that was a perfect opportunity to bring up the Matt Flynn opportunity again. So,
Right.
Anyway, I hero shot, right? All right, let's go ahead and move on into the next matchup. We've got the Texans and the Colts. Texans favored by 1.5. The over under on this one, 47.5. Thoughts on this one?
Picking Houston. They got to win this game. CJ Stroud is back. The Colts have been kind of sputtering along, right? Like it's just not quite, I guess. It's not pretty the way Indianapolis is doing it. And I think Stroud right now is playing the best of any quarterback in this division. And when your playoff lives are on the line, I want the best quarterback possible. And in the AFC South, that's Stroud. So I'm taking Houston to cover and win this game. I am going to take the under, though. I think Houston's defense is going to show up. I think D'Amico Ryans is going to have them primed. And 48 points is going to be a little hard to get to.
Fair enough. I'm going to take the over on it. I do think that we see just enough of some points put up in this one for it to be, interesting, right? I do think that we see some points put up on this one, but I'm right there with you. I think Houston wins this one. And Houston, upon winning that, again, they're becoming the biggest Titans fans on the planet there as well, because Jacksonville loss would with a Houston win means that they win the wins the division, as well as the fact that if Indianapolis wins, they're also got to be the Titans' biggest fans on the planet come Sunday morning there as well, because a Indianapolis win and a Jacksonville loss, they win the division. So this is a game that really has a lot kind of riding on it for a lot of teams out there. So very interesting there. As far as a prop goes that I'd like on this one, I'm going Michael Pittman over 79.5 receiving yards.
I'm taking Nico Collins over 5.5 receptions.
I like it. I like that one a lot. Question coming in here from Jay over on the YouTube asking Derek Carr or Tyrod Taylor for the ship.
I think I'm going with Derek Carr at home. And it could be Tyrod in garbage time.
It's close.
It's close. It is close. I think what scares me about Tyrod in general is it is the lack of weapons in the passing game for New York, right? Darren Waller, yes, is back. But you still kind of have a merry band of Jags that Tyrod's throwing to, right? Like you don't have anybody who's necessarily standing out. Jalen Hyatt has not been as dynamic. Now, part of that's offensive design, but just in general, he hasn't been as dynamic as a lot of people want him to. Yes, the offense runs through Saquon. The Eagles are playing for the divisional title too, right? Like, yes, they're going to be scoreboard watching that Dallas-Washington game, but the Eagles are going to keep an eye on that for sure. And if that Dallas-Washington game remains close, then the Eagles are not going to be pulling anybody, right? They are going to leave their guys in this game to make sure that they finish off the Giants. So it might make things a little bit more difficult for Tyrod. Yeah, I'm going Derek Carr by a hair. I really am. I'd rather see him throw to Chris Olave and Shaheed and try and figure out a way to win that game with Carr than I'm going to trust Tyrod, even though the Eagles secondaries reeling here at the moment, I think is the best way to put it.
That is a good way to put it. I'm right there with you. I think that it is a Derek Carr. It's going to be close when this thing's all said and done. But I'm leaning on kind of the same logic that you're looking at there, right? Like there's a good chance that Philadelphia is going to leave their starters in there until late into the game. Even though Philadelphia's back end on the secondary has been, just not near to the caliber that we saw last year. But at the same time, too, right? Derek Carr and the New Orleans Saints are in a must-win game to try and keep their playoff hopes alive. Because if they win, Tampa Bay loses, they win the division. If they win, there's some other scenarios that can happen too. With the Tampa Bay win there as well. But they then have to do some scoreboard watching and hope things kind of fall their way. But they have to win to keep postseason hopes alive here, and New York doesn't. So I'm going to go the Derek Carr route. I want the guy the guy that's playing for something, and the team that's playing for something here for all 60 minutes. So that's kind of where I'm at there as well.
Yeah,
Any other
absolutely.
thoughts?
No, I agree, right? Because New Orleans, if New Orleans can win and Tampa Bay stubs their toe and loses at Carolina, New Orleans wins the division.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, again, NFC South, like, yes, it's not the prettiest division, but the Saints are playing for something here. Like,
Right.
they absolutely need to make sure they handle business against a Falcons team who, I don't think mathematically can make it. I think they are eliminated already because they've lost both games against Tampa Bay.
Actually, here's the
Oh, good.
crazy.
Do you have that? Are
Yes,
they still there?
they are still mathematically there.
Oh,
Somehow the Falcons can win the division with a win and a Tampa Bay loss because of tiebreakers on how all of that works.
okay.
So at which point the Tampa Bay loss, Atlanta win, the Bucks, the Falcons, and the Saints would all finish at 8-9 for the division. In that same division, and Atlanta via tiebreakers would actually win the division. So Atlanta has something to play for too. So that game I think will be a very hotly contested matchup throughout. So, and at that point, if you got two guys playing close, give me the quarterback that's got the big money deal that put it on his right arm, see if they can win the game.
Yep, absolutely.
So, all righty, great question there, Jay. Again, guys, if you have any questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat. Let's go ahead and talk about them. Let's get those rocking and rolling for those of you still playing in a Week 18 championship. All right, so next matchup, we got the Browns, we got the Bengals. Bengals favored by 7. The over-under is 37.5. Thoughts on this one?
Taking the Browns to cover. Now, the Bengals might win this game, right? Like that. I don't know the Bengals on the money line would surprise me. Was it Jeff Driscoll? Is that right? Who's playing quarterback for Cleveland this week? So definitely they're not playing any of their offensive weapons. I think Cooper's out. Amari Cooper's out. David Njoku's out. Who else is? My guess is we'll see Pierre Strong and Kareem Hunt as the running backs in this game. So Jerome Ford is out. So they're missing some guys. T. Higgins is likely out for the Bengals. And I don't believe Jamar Chase is going to play with the shoulder, right? Like now that I think are the Bengals still alive, or are the Bengals eliminated?
The Bengals are donezo.
Yeah, so I don't think you see Chase. I don't think you see Higgins. Like 7 points is a big, big number when you don't have your top two guys. Like Tyler Boyd might show out. He's playing for a contract.
Right.
So big Tyler Boyd game. Jake Browning's obviously trying to show out and do his thing. So Jake Browning and Tyler Boyd, like good guys to look at for DFS possibly. But I think in a higher scoring affair because so many people are sitting for both sides, whether it's injury or whatnot. With the Bengals being eliminated, the Browns have already clinched. I do think we get over the 37.5 points, but I think Cleveland keeps it inside of a touchdown.
Fair enough. I do think that Cleveland, same thing with that. I do think we see some points put up in this one. I was almost a little surprised that the Browns didn't start Joe Flacco and then just immediately, pull him after a couple of snaps to bring in Jeff Driscoll, just because of some of the contract bonuses that Flacco gets for every game win there. So, anyway, just kind of a funky deal there that I kind of thought that might pan out there a little bit different. But anyway, as far as some of the props go, I did not see any props that I liked on this one, so I'm going to pass on calling for a prop on this one.
I didn't see any Vegas props on this game, period. Unless I missed something. Yeah.
No, I think I didn't. When I say I didn't see any that I like, I didn't see any either. So, I can talk myself into about anything. Just I couldn't even find myself to talk myself into one.
Yeah. Yeah. So no props available for this game. Sorry, folks.
All righty. So just kind of, looking at the playoff picture here, kind of broad strokes. For the AFC side, there's still 3 spots available out there for playoff contention. One is the AFC South division, and then 2 wild card spots, with the teams vying for those being the Jaguars, Bills, Colts, Texans, and Steelers. And then on the NFC side of things,
Hold
division
on.
being...
Is that right? In the East is up for grabs too.
Correct, but the Bills and the Dolphins would should have already clinched. Or the Dolphins have clinched a playoff spot, but the division is still up. So if Buffalo wins the division, and if they lose, they kind of have to fall into some of the tiebreakers as far as, do they still make the wild card?
Gotcha.
So there's some crazy math that starts taking place at that point on what the percentages be if they lose, all of that kind of stuff. So, moral of the story is win and you're in, right?
That's right.
On the NFC side of things, the NFC South is still in contention. We already kind of went through on how it's in contention there. And then there's only one wild card spot open that the Packers are currently sitting on. But on the teams kind of sitting just outside looking in that still have a mathematical chance of getting there are the Seahawks, Saints, Vikings, and Falcons. So very, very interesting. All righty. Let's go ahead and move on to the next matchup here. We've got the Vikings. We got the Lions. Lions favored by 3.5. The over-under on this one, 45.5. Thoughts on this one?
I'm taking Detroit in this game. Like I think Dan Campbell is just going to go out and, again, the hard-nosed football, biting kneecaps. Like, he doesn't want to give anything to anybody, so he's not going to roll over for a divisional opponent that could get into the playoffs. They're going to go out and try and keep the tone that they've had here recently, and go and end the regular season on a high note. So I'm taking the Lions to cover the 3.5. I am taking the under, though. I think their defense is going to step up. Minnesota's offense has been meh at best. Thank you for costing me my fantasy championship, Minnesota. I'm blaming it squarely on you. But I digress. I'm not bitter at all.
Not bitter at all. I'm right there with you. I do think that Detroit wins this thing, covers. I do think that the under comes into play. I was a little surprised, though, to see that Detroit is playing as, what they're projecting anyway, to play as many of their starters as they can, because at this point, you're really looking at going between like a 2 seed and a 3 seed is really what they're playing for there. Like, so
2 seed keeps you away from San Francisco.
It's very true. Keeps you away longer. That's for sure. So, anyway, that's just kind of one of the things that I was looking at and going, kind of interesting, right? So anyway, that being the case, I am going to go with there is such a thing as Jared Goff home magic, and I'm going to play into that. So Jared Goff to go over 215.5 passing yards.
I like that one. That one just seems like low-hanging fruit here. I'm going to take Ty Chandler over 44.5 rushing yards. He has by far been the best running back for Minnesota all year long. Um, quite possibly, maybe not necessarily the lead back, but an active part of this offense going forward, still being on his rookie deal. And I think he shows out this game.
Yeah, I like that one. All right, we got the Jaguars and Titans squaring off. Jaguars favored by 4. The over-under on this one, 41.5. Thoughts on this game?
Taking Tennessee at home to cover. Now, I don't know if they're going to win this game, but I know that they would love to play spoiler, right? Do what they can to play spoiler. Jacksonville, another team, has not been overwhelming by any stretch. Trevor Lawrence is dinged up. He's a game time decision. Even when he is in the game, they haven't been looking all that great. And Tennessee plays better at home. They just do. So I'm going to take the over. I think we're actually going to see, some points here in this game. It might end up being a 21-20 type game, which that's fine. It just gets us to the over. Oh no, I was looking at the open. Sorry. 23-21, maybe 23-20, something like that. Still gets us just to the over. But I am going to take Tennessee to cover this game at home.
Yeah, I do think that Tennessee, this feels like a field goal or less type of game. Like this feels like it's going to be a hotly contested, very tight game. Tennessee can play spoiler on this. Jacksonville, again, win and you're in, win and you win the division. So, you know that they're going to be trying to get that job done there and secure a playoff, secure a playoff win, to secure a home playoff game. But I think Tennessee manages to get inside that 4. I don't know if they pull off the W, but I do think that they're going to get inside. I do think that we see the under come into play. I think this is probably like a 21-18 game. Like it's going to be I think a little bit grinded out almost, because I do think the Titans are going to lean on Derrick Henry in what very well could be his last game in a Tennessee Titans uniform. Wouldn't surprise me to see that. And that being the case, I'm going to go with Derrick Henry to go over 49.5 rushing yards. I think they're going to feed him a lot.
I'm taking DeAndre Hopkins over 64.5 receiving yards. A lot of this is tied to contract boosters. So he needs, I think he needs 57 yards, right? So he'll be just over the booster and either 4 or 7 catches to hit a couple different boosters in his contract. So I think we're going to see a lot of D-Hop from Tennessee.
Yeah, very well could. All right, the Jets and the Patriots. Patriots favored by 2. The over/under 30.5. Thoughts on this one?
Pats and under. Like this is a dog game of this slate, right? So neither team has anything to play for. Taking New England because they're at home. It wouldn't surprise me if the Jets do end up pulling this game out, but I'm taking New England because they're at home, and I'm taking the under. Like I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of points scored in this game. It's going to be a lot of punting back and forth.
9-6 wouldn't surprise me if that's
possibly right. One. Battle of turnovers, right? If you give the other team a short field, they might be able to punch one in. But other than that, I think you're spot on, right? 12-10. I mean, something like that. Right. It's going to be. It is not going to be a very entertaining football game if you believe that offense is better than defense.
Fair enough. Yeah, this one here going to be rough. The Patriots though and Belichick seem to have the Jets number for many, many years, and I'm just I'm going to lean into that here on this one and go that route. So I'm taking New England. I do think the under comes to play, right? Like they said, 9-6 wouldn't surprise me to look up and see that's the final score on this one. 0 props.
And if it is Belichick, and if it is Belichick's last game, New England's going to try and put him out on a high note. Not the great season, right? Not anywhere near where they wanted to be. But if it is going to be his last game, you know the players are going to go out there and at least try and show well for him.
Correct. Yeah. And I didn't see any props on this one, so
I did not see any Vegas listed props either.
All right, moving along. All right, the Falcons, the Saints, in a divisional game that has some weight towards the NFC South, division title here. Saints favored by 3. The over under 42.5. Thoughts on this one?
I like the push, but we don't play that game. So New Orleans to cover at home in an over. I think we're going to see some points here in this game as teams get desperate in the second half.
Fair enough. I'm going to take the under. I do think that we come in just under, right? This one, smells to me very much of that 21-3 type of, 21-18 type of matchup. The 3 points, I'm right there with you. That feels like a push game. But I'm going to lean New Orleans there as well to take care of business at home. I do think that Drake London sees a decent game here with 46.5 receiving yards, going over that.
I have Olave under 6.5 receptions. I think he gets to 6. But I do not think we see him with more than that.
Yeah, 6.5 is a big number on that one for sure. All right, Tampa Bay, Carolina. Tampa Bay wins. They win the division, and they are favored by 4.5. The over-under on this one, 36.5. Thoughts on this one?
Taking Tampa Bay to go in and take care of business here. So I'm taking Tampa Bay to cover. I'm taking the over. I think we're going to see some points from Tampa Bay early, and I do think we see a backdoor cover by Carolina.
Fair enough. That very well could be. I'm going to take Tampa Bay to win. I do think that they get the job done. They do understand what's on the line there. I do think that the under comes into play. I just don't know that I can trust Carolina to put up enough points to cumulatively keep this a close game and get to 36. So I'm going to take the under on this one. As far as a prop that I like on this one was Baker to go over 225.5 passing yards.
I like it because it plays right into mine. Rachaad White over 22.5 receiving yards.
I like it. All righty. We got the Bears. We got the Packers. Packers favored by 3. The over-under on this one is 45.5. Thoughts on this one?
Packers have been playing well as of late, particularly at home. Jordan Love seems to be finding his stride. So I think the Packers win this game and get into the playoffs. So I'm taking Green Bay to cover the 3 points. And I'm going to take the under in this game. I think 45.5 is just a touch too much with the way that both defenses have been playing. So that one's going to be tough, but I do think Green Bay finds a way to win this game by 4 points.
Fair enough. I am going to take Chicago. They're playing really well on both sides of the ball right now, and I think that that's going to carry over. And who would have thought that Green Bay losing Aaron Rodgers, fast forward a year, and they're in the same scenario going into the last week of the season where they have to win to get in and all of that. So kind of crazy how some of those things, things change but stay the same type of thing. But I do think that Chicago finds a way to play spoiler in this one. And I am looking for this one to get some points on it. I do think we see the over just barely get touched, but I do think that we find the over in this one. As far as a prop that I like, Jordan Love to go under 254.5 passing yards.
I'm taking DJ Moore over 63.5 receiving yards. I think that's just a little bit too light for what DJ Moore and Justin Fields have been able to accomplish here lately.
I would agree with that. All right, we got the Broncos. We got the Raiders. Raiders favored by 3. The over under 37.5. Thoughts on this one?
I'm taking the Raiders. I'm taking the over. I think both teams touch 20 in this game. And yeah, battle of the basement dwellers. I guess you have the Chargers. So but it's a battle for distant second place behind the Chiefs.
Right. I'm just going to say cosign on that one because I've got the Raiders. I've got the over. I didn't see a prop out there on this one.
No. And even if there was, I don't know if it'd be worth taking. I might take a Zamir White prop. honestly. Like if I could have found a Zamir White rushing prop, I probably would have taken that because I do think he has a bonkers game.
Fair enough. Certainly playing to showcase what he's got at this point for sure.
Dang right, he's trying to get Josh Jacobs out of town.
Well, he's certainly done very well the last few weeks. So
Yes, he's looked very good.
See if he can finish it off. All right, we got the Eagles. We got the Giants. Eagles favored by 5.5. The over-under on this one, 41.5. Thoughts on this one?
I think the Giants keep this close enough to be interesting. At home, trying to play spoiler. There's still a little bit of fight left in that dog, if you will. And I think that they can do just enough to get inside that 5.5. That's kind of a weird total to try and hit, or spread to kind of hit, right? So, 6 points. There's not too many NFL games that finish at a 6-point spread in margin. So I think the Giants keep within that. And I'm going to take the over. I think there's going to be some points here. The game line opened at 45.5, dropped all the way down to 41.5. I'm going to say we eclipse the 41.5 because the Giants will continue to put the pressure on in the second half.
Fair enough. I'm going to take Philly though. I think this is a team that realizes that they are not finishing the season the way that they necessarily want to, right? Like kind of a far cry from where they were going into the postseason last year, where they really were starting to look pretty good and kind of humming along there. So I think that they find a way to get this one and win this thing by a touchdown. I do think that the under comes into play. This is also part of that reason is I just don't trust the Giants to be able to put up enough points to help carry us to the over. So I'll do that. I do think, though, that Saquon finds a way to get over 19.5 receiving yards.
Taking Darius Slayton over 43.5 receiving yards. I think he's going to see some garbage time work.
I like it. Alrighty, we've got the Seahawks and the Cardinals. The Seahawks favored by 3. The over/under 47.5. Thoughts on this one?
Well, I take Seattle. They're the team that has something to play for. They got a little shell shocked last week against Pittsburgh, and I think that they realized that they kind of let one go that they should have had. So they're going to try and right the ship here in the division to end the season on a strong note, regardless. But they absolutely are fighting for a playoff spot if Green Bay happens to drop one here. So Seattle. But I am taking the under. 47.5 is a lot of points for two teams who kind of can go dormant offensively at times. So I'm going to call for the under, but Seattle finds a way to cover this one.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. I do think that we see Seattle cover this thing. I think we see the over. Though it's not going to be by a crazy amount, but I think we see just enough that we get there, right? Like a 27-21 type of game. I do think that we can see that one come to play. As far as a prop that I like was Kenneth Walker to go over 57.5 rushing yards.
No, I'm taking Trey McBride over 5.5 receptions.
Yeah, that seems like a slam dunker.
All right. Seattle's decent against the tight end. I mean, we'll see how it plays out. They have been good against the tight end, but Kyler loves looking his way, right? Like he's going to see 8 or 9 targets, and you just hope he comes down with 6 balls.
Right. Absolutely. Chiefs, Chargers. The Chargers favored by 3.5. The over under 35.5. And yes, I had to do a double take a couple of times on those lines and totals there because my brain just couldn't compute it. But thoughts on this game?
I'm going to take Kansas City. I'm going to take the over, and I'm going to take the fact that drama is going to swirl, that this offense will be more efficient with Patrick Mahomes on the sideline than what it's been with him on the field this year.
Yeah. I don't know that that's as hot of a take as it sounds initially, right? Like, yeah, Mahomes and the Chiefs are not looking up to what their normal standard is. That's for sure. But I do think you're right. I do think that Kansas City finds a way to, get inside the 3.5, right? Like field goal or better seems very plausible. And I do think that the over comes to play, right? Like this is just a very, very low total. So I think that we see the over. I think we see Kansas City sneak inside that 3.5. No props that I could find on this one.
Yeah, I don't see props either, and I would agree. Like, I guess I'm not trying to make it sound like a hot take. I just feel like it's what the media is going to be harping on. Is, wow, look at the Kansas City offense, and they were more efficient, and they were able to do these different things without Mahomes, and that, like, I just think it's something that the media will tee off on. So I don't. It wasn't meant to be a hot take necessarily. Yes, it sounds like it's trying to be one, but I do think that the Chiefs got to handle business, and it's just it'll give something for the national media on the four-letter networks, something to talk about.
Fair enough. Alrighty. Rams and the Niners. Niners favored by 4. The over under 40.5. Thoughts on this one?
I'm taking San Francisco to cover this still. I do think that they're the better team. Um, the Rams, I think they're going out to hit a couple incentive boosters, mainly for Puka Nacua. There's no Cooper Cup. There's no Kyron Williams. So they're going to try and force feed Puka here really quick, and then Stafford and Puka are going to get the hell out of Dodge. So I think the Niners after that are going to take the air out of the football. So I'm taking the under in this game, but they find a way to win by I say 5, but they'll win by more than 4. I hate 4-point games. They're ugly.
Right. Yeah, I mean Puka Nacua is really, really close of breaking the rookie record there. And I think you're right. I think they find a way to get that done. And then that's all she wrote for Rams players at that point. Both of these teams have already secured their playoff spot. Both of these teams have already, the Niners have clinched the number 1 seed. The Rams really can't go, up or down as far as the there might be a little bit of wiggle room. I didn't check far enough into that, but they're pretty much locked into about that 6 seed in that range. So, that's just kind of where that's going to come to play. So I do think though that San Francisco finds a way to get the job done here. I do think that the over comes into play. This is probably one of those that since we're going to see some defensive starters getting set here, we very well might see some points here. Right, we got backups trying to play for contracts, play for put some game film out there. So I do think we see some guys that show up here a little bit, show out a little bit. Just not the big name guys. They'll be on the bench watching the other guys play. So, and I didn't see any props on this one either.
Because
All righty, we got the Cowboys, we got the Manders, and the Cowboys favored by 13. The over under 46.5. Thoughts on this one?
too big of a spread for a Week 18 game. Cowboys being on the road, I'm not taking a 13-point Cowboy favorite on the road. Washington's going to want to play spoiler. If Cowboys feel like they have a comfortable enough lead, they're going to start pulling some guys early. Washington, all these guys, they're playing for jobs, right? You're getting a new head coach. You're going to be changing some things up. You are fighting for your professional lives, right? That's what a lot of these guys are doing here. So I think Washington's able to keep it close enough, even with the backdoor cover. But I do think we see the over. The Cowboys are going to get points early. I think Washington's going to get points late.
Yeah, I would agree with both of those. And you're right? Like there's a very real possibility that we see a coaching change here in the offseason for the Commanders, a very real possibility. We see a GM changeover here as well in the offseason for the Commanders. So both of those things being the case, right? Like you're right. There's guys that are going to be on the Washington side, certainly playing for put things on tape, put things out there to for next year. Absolutely. So Washington over. I do think that Sam Howell though finds a way to get over 217.5 passing yards, because I think you're right. I think Dallas kind of jumps up early, and then we see a lot of second stringers come in here late, and so garbage time carries us over. Hey, do you have a prop on that one?
Yes, sorry. I moved down to the next game already. I'm taking Jake Ferguson over 3.5 receptions. I'm not sure if we're going to see a full game of CD Lamb, but I do think Jake Ferguson will stay relevant for most of that game.
I like it. We got the Bills, the Dolphins. Winner of this one wins the AFC East. Buffalo favored by 2.5. The over under 48.5. Thoughts on this one?
Taking Buffalo to win this game. They're a team that's playing much better as of late. The Dolphins kind of reeling a little bit. Tyreek Hill's dinged up. Jalen Waddle, most likely, I don't think Jalen Waddle's going to play in this game. The Bills have been playing good football, and this should be a good Sunday night game to end the season. But 48.5 is a little steep for me, so I'm going to take the under on the total, but I am taking Buffalo to win this game by at least a field goal.
I like it. I'm right there with you. I think Buffalo finds a way to get it done. I do think that the under comes into play. And speaking of unders, I think Stephon Diggs goes under 59.5 receiving yards.
I have James Cook over 2.5 receptions because now that playoffs are done, he's going to have a bonkers game.
Right? Yep, that's the way that always seems to work. So, alrighty. Well, any other thoughts out here on the slate of games or any other thoughts heading in here to week 18?
Like you said earlier, right? We have a good slate of games. There are definitely things being played for and that are on the line. I think that the way that the slate is broken out, right? It should be entertaining football. We're not going to have to watch some of these dog games. Realistically, we should have games that have playoff implications throughout the day. So, good way to end the regular season. And hopefully for those of you in a week 18 championship game, it pans out the way you need to, because week 18 championships sucketh. And it was one of the best decisions our home league ever made, was to move away from that week 18 game.
Right? No kidding. So, all right. JAC asking the question. It has week 2 of the championship at a 12-person league starting tomorrow. Need some help with tight end and flex and full point PPR. Have Laporta, McBride, Khalil Herbert, and Ty Chandler. And he also agrees that at week 18, no bueno.
Right. I am going with Laporta. I'm not going with Laporta, because if the Lions jump out early, there's a good chance that he gets yanked. Like, that is a guy that they cannot lose going into the playoffs. So I'm going to take McBride in the guaranteed targets from Kyler Murray. And I'm also going to take Khalil Herbert because the Packers are susceptible to the ground game. And that's what the Bears do best. Herbert's had a couple really good weeks here back to back. Donta Foreman has been a healthy scratch for personal reasons here the last couple games. I don't think that changes. So I'm going to ride with McBride and Herbert for your championship.
Go to the sign. I like it. I'm gonna ride that one right there with you. So very good. All right, JC, there we go. Guys, if you have any final questions, let's go ahead and throw them out here. We're gonna wrap it up and call it a night. So in fact, that's where we're heading right now, unless you have any final thoughts.
No, I don't think so. Thank you to everyone who tuned in and joined us here for the Friday Night Lights, the Bet Set Snap. As we went through this, hopefully, it was as entertaining for you guys as it was fun for us. I know Derek and I really enjoy these Friday night shows during the regular season. So, Zamir White. Ooh.
Oh, now you got to throw in the wrinkle. Okay.
I think I'm going Zamir White. I don't think Jacobs is going. So as long as Jacobs is crap.
It's a full point PPR. Okay, let's see.
I closed my doc, Derek. What time do the Bears and Packers play? Do they have the morning game?
Let's see here. They're the afternoon game. They're the late window.
Oh, good. So they're both late window games. Perfect. If Josh Jacobs can't go, you're playing Zamir White. If Josh Jacobs is going, you pivot and you play Khalil Herbert.
Yeah, 100%. So I think Zamir White actually can sneak in as a top 10 guy this week.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think he has a monster game. So Khalil Herbert, while he may have a good game, I don't see top 10 type of ceiling on that one. So And if you're playing for a championship, you're putting your best ceiling out there to try and rock and roll it. So that would be how I would go about it too. So, alrighty. Well, any final thoughts?
No, best of luck to JAC. Enjoy the weekend slate of games. Thank you for tuning in. This is so much fun for us, and we will still be here on Tuesdays, but Friday nights are going to go. Friday night lights are going to get turned off here for a little while, but we'll be back next year.
Absolutely. So, like Kevin just said, we'll be here Tuesdays, 11 p.m. Eastern. We keep the show going during the entire playoffs and off season, and here pretty soon we'll start gearing up here towards the, some dynasty, some rookie drafts, NFL draft prospects, all that good stuff, and then of course player profiles will be coming out to get you guys ready to go for the um, the next year's redraft there as well. So JAC was also throwing the question out here on the thoughts on the college football championship. Knows that we gotta rock and roll that one through.
Uh, I think Michigan's going to win that game. I think Washington's going to have a hard time keeping up with that pass rush, and their secondary is far better than what Texas had. So it's going to present some problems for Penix and the Washington Huskies. Obviously, their top running back is dinged up. Not sure if he's actually going to be able to play the game or not, but they weren't getting much done on the ground against Texas. Michigan has a better running defense than Texas as well, right? So it's going to be a challenge for Washington, and I think it's going to be a Michigan style of football game, right? It's going to be physical, it's going to be kind of grimy, and I think the defense of Michigan will be able to create at least one short field, much like they did against Alabama, right? It was one turnover, one short field, and boom, they're back in it. And you know, it I don't know, lackluster. I don't want Michigan to win, but it is what it is. I think they're going to.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, Washington's hopes lies firmly on the arm of Michael Penix. Like it's going to come down to him having a phenomenal game, and he's going to have to be almost perfect, I think, for them to truly pull that one out there. So yeah, there's that Michigan is really is kind of the complete on both sides of the ball. Like they play really good complementary football on both sides there. So I think there's a lot to be said about that. Washington certainly has the high powered offense. The QB with they can make every throw on the field, and yeah, Penix was certainly fitting it into some tight windows and really had some great ball placement, against Texas. But that's going to have to continue and even get a little bit better to try and win a championship here against the Wolverines. So I think we're going to see it close, and then I think we're going to see Michigan kind of pull away here after the second half. So I think we'll see a very good first quarter. First two quarters, and then after halftime adjustments made, and I think we'll see Michigan kind of pull away. Is kind of my thoughts. So, and then JAC also saying, sorry, I haven't been around much this year, been busy, but appreciate the help. Y'all have an underrated pod, and Kevin, I think he's talking to you with the Go Dogs there. So
Dogs, that's right.
All right, and one last question from JAC. Do y'all have any good props based on contract incentives this weekend?
I do.
Kevin's got a few out there, mostly around DeAndre Hopkins, I feel.
You take the Hopkins over the reception total, over the yardage total. I'm taking Dalton Schultz over 4.5 receptions. That's another contract incentive one right there, going up against the Colts. And then they don't have, I mean, I wish that they had one for Puka, because I'd be interested to see what they set it at if he's going for that rookie receiving record. So that one's not there. But those are the three main ones for the games that gave props that I really like. There's some defensive player props. I believe it's Chandler Jones for the Chiefs, who needs a
Chris
sack.
Jones.
Chris Jones, excuse me. I think he needs a sack for like $1 million. Is essentially what it is. So I think he's able to find that against the Chargers. So if you can find his, that's another one there on the defensive side of the ball. But those are probably the top 3 or 4 that I'm really looking at and hammering.
All righty, I like it. So, guys, we'll keep this thing going during the off season. So you can find us Tuesday, 11 p.m. Easterns, and rocking and rolling through that. Should have a lot of fun. Those Tuesday shows are also a lot of fun, especially over the off season when we start diving deep into rookies and player profiles and start doing those breakdowns there. So, but that's going to do it for us. The lights are going off here on the Friday nights. The Bet Set Snap Weekly Huddle will be back next year for y'all. But that's going to do it for us tonight. He's Kevin. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe. Toodaloose.